This is Martin Giles of the Guildford Dragon News, and this afternoon I'm with James Steele, who's the lead councillor for the environment at Guildford Borough Council, and part of his portfolio is Guildford Museum. Good afternoon, James.
Good afternoon, Martin.
Right, now you've just put out a press release about decolonising the museum collection. Where did the idea come from?
It was very much, it's looking at what's happened nationally and sort of internationally almost. It was, of course, with the murder of George Floyd over a month ago, coupled with the protests that happened, of course, here in Guildford, you know, and the rest of the UK and sort of everywhere else in the Western world. It was very much, as a council, it was a way of looking at the fact that, you know, equality and diversity is a key issue for us, and we need to actually properly show that we are serious about this. And it's something that was being mulled around in the museum collections, the museum forward plan for a while, but it was very much maybe at the back end of the strategy with a new one that should hopefully be coming out in autumn. And it was a case of going, actually, we need to actually bring this forward and actually have this as a top priority. It's something to happen in the next 5 years.
But who's the we there? Was it your idea to bring that forward or someone else's?
It was mine and Caroline's.
Okay. Caroline Reeves, the council leader.
Council leader, yeah. It was, you know, we've seen that a lot of other museums, especially on the continent. I know in France, the French government had basically, you know, asked museums to conduct a report of their collections and their connections with colonialism and the French and the French Empire. And there's other examples as well, of course, in Belgium and in the Netherlands, where they've been doing such a thing, and other museums around the UK as well. And it's very much following on from that leader going, do you know what, if we want to be a museum that wants to be inclusive, that wants to bring in people from ethnic minority backgrounds, because that's always a massive issue in the heritage sector, in the museum sector, especially in Europe, is to get more people from ethnic minority backgrounds into the service, and we need to actively show that we are serious about that, and doing a decolonisation project will help do that. Okay,
and now Matthew Alexander, and who's the former curator of the museum, and Mary Alexander, who was the collections officer, they both told the Dragon that they can't think of any objects that would fit the criteria you describe in your Lib Dem website article that preceded the press release. Can you think of any articles?
I can't, but this the whole idea of this is the fact that we actually do a project and we actually have a look. Nothing on this scale has been done before, and it's quite exciting because it's not only looking at items that potentially were taken from other countries in Britain's colonial past, but also looking at ways in which items could have been affected by colonialism and the British Empire, and actually being able to tell those stories in a more richer fashion. Of course, we could do an entire project looking at it, and none of the items could have some sort of connection with colonialism, and then at least we've known we've done it, and that we've actually looked at sort of decolonising the collection that we have. And of course, there are items. Then it will come to the executive if there anything that is really contentious that may need to be handed back.
But can you give me one example of the kind of thing that might fit the criteria of something that has been affected by colonialism?
So for something that's directly affected, it could have been an item that could have been taken either from northern Africa, or somewhere in the regions of Asia in which the British Empire was was in control over. Something indirectly could be items that were either made either in sort of parts of the British Empire that were then shipped to the UK, and actually telling the story of how that took place.
So how about army regimental colours then that have got battle honours from the colonial wars?
Well, then that's, you know, anything that possibly could be, you know, it can be noted down in a way of telling a richer, more fulfilling story.
So you wouldn't remove them?
No, there wouldn't be any cause to remove It'd be all about actually telling the story in a lot more of a sort of richer and more detailed fashion.
Okay. How familiar do you feel you are with the museum collection?
And of course, they would be up to the executive to actually look at them and go, ethically, is it acceptable for us to keep it?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's right.
How familiar are you with the museum collection and Guildford's history, do you think?
I'm still learning a lot. There's a lot of course, a lot of artifacts that the Guildford Museum own, and I can say that I know every single one of them,
No.
unfortunately.
How many items are there in the collection?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I do believe it is around about in the hundreds, close to the thousands of items that we do have.
So around 1,000, you think?
Probably, yeah, around about 1,000, around about 1,000 items. I don't know the exact numbers per se, you know, because items range from being old, being former cars and vehicles down to very small items.
Yeah, but I was just trying to get some kind of ballpark figure. So as far as you know, it's around 1,000.
I couldn't give an exact number. You'd have to get that off. You'd have to ask somebody in the museum's team to be able to give the exact number of items that at least we hold. I know when it comes to ownership, that's another different matter, because I know the vast majority of the items that we store at the moment we own, but I know some are owned by the Surrey Archaeological Society.
I mean, I know the museum collection a little bit. I wouldn't, and I would only describe it as a little bit, but I can't think of anything that would. And maybe some of the militaria relates to colonialism, but only because of the regimental history. I really struggle to think of one that does, any one item that does fit that criteria. But you're saying that they just do a review and make sure that is the case.
Yeah, it's pretty much like if you're a business, you would have auditors that would come into a company to look at the products you have, you know, the way in which you procure them, elements like that. It's important that we do it. I think it is incredibly important that we do it. If we find things, then we get to that stage of seeing about how we tell that story in a richer fashion, or if they're even more contentious than possibly handing back. But if we don't find anything, then we don't find anything. The fact of the matter is, we actually did the project. We actually looked at all the items in a colonial manner, so that we know a lot more about our collection items than we did previously.
Okay. Are you surprised with the criticism your press release has provoked?
It's been mixed from what I've seen. There's been some people, I know on Twitter, there's been some people that have been really supportive of the proposed project, and there's some people that's been quite negative about it. It's quite a forward and innovative thing, and I'm sorry the fact that some people don't like that, aren't entirely pleased with it, but the overwhelming response that I've seen has been very positive towards what we're wishing to do, and especially those from people in the ethnic minority communities in Guildford. They're really pleased that we're wishing to do this.
Okay, well, we've asked people associated with the museum and a range of someone from each of the political parties at the Borough Council, and I think unanimously they are critical of the proposal.
Well, I mean, if that's their viewpoint, that's their viewpoint. But I know very much that, from the reactions I've seen from, especially those in the ethnic minority communities, and also generally to what the press release traction got online, then it gained positive. It was a positive way forward.
Okay, and who did you consult before you issued the press release? Anybody or?
No consultation as of that. This is mainly one. It was not a press release, more of an article, more saying what is going to be one of the action points that's going to come in the Heritage Forward Plan and the Heritage Strategy, which will be going to the Museum Working Group at the Council, and of course the Friends of Guildford Museum and the Heritage Forum as well will be consulted in due course on it.
But the council statement was a press release, wasn't it?
Yes, but referring to the article that was released before that.
Okay, and so did you consult for instance, did you consult your R4GV colleagues, considering they're your partners on the executive?
They were made aware of they were made aware that this is what we were aiming to do. Yeah, they were made aware, and there was no objections came up.
Okay, Josh Bigmore has told us that he was surprised.
I think it was just more the fact that the article was released. When the article was released, it was sorry. When the article was released about them knowing that my article was getting released because it was a Lib Dem press release, Lib Dem article. Sorry, you don't get too mixed up on the article bit.
Okay. Now, this policy wasn't in your manifesto, was it?
It wasn't, but it's very much a case of looking at the times, and it was looking at of course it's taking together what was happening with the Black Lives Matter movement, with the protests that took place. That was, this was in the heritage. This is in the draft version of the heritage strategy, and it was very much a case of actually now was the right time to actually start talking about some of the elements that were going to be in it that had a relation to what's been taking place.
But do you think that, given it wasn't in your manifesto, do you think the Guildford Borough residents should be consulted?
It's
our museum, isn't it? It's everybody's museum, I should say.
It is everyone's museum, and the relevant stakeholders, of course, in due course, will be consulted.
In due course. Well, when would that be?
It should, in the autumn. At the moment, no fixed timetable is set, but it should be in the autumn.
So how will they be consulted?
Of course, we'll have to work. It probably will be. We don't know in terms of how we're going to do. In terms of if it's either going to be online or if it's going to be in person. The aim would, of course, be to hope that we can have an in-person consultation period. But of course, we'll have to make sure that it's socially distance compliant and it's safely compliant in this COVID in this sort of COVID scenario that we are in.
Okay, but if the residents come back and say, no, we don't think this is a good idea, we don't think this is the best way to spend money or to achieve the aim of reducing racial discrimination, what will you do?
Well, if it seems to be that is the case, then of course we will review it in due course.
Okay. Okay, Councillor James Steele, thank you very much.
That's all right.